I was working 100 hours a week and didn't have enough time for anything. But I was missing so many opportunities, dropping the ball left and right on my personal production, which is why in 2022, I jumped completely out of sales to just run the team. Halfway through 2022, I did this exercise, and we had always averaged about 16 to 20 agents on our team. And when I did the numbers, I realized, well, shoot, we need 32 agents on the team. No wonder we're not profitable, as we have literally half as many agents as we need to get anywhere near where we want to be. Most team leaders completely guess at how big their real estate team should be, and I don't want you to be that leader. And what if I told you you could know exactly how many agents you need on your team in order to hit your goals for revenue and profits for your team? Well, you can, and today I'm going to go through the exact formula of how you can figure out how to find what your ideal, or really more your minimum team size is going to be. And this podcast is specifically for team leaders and maybe broker owners as well too. And this is just me sharing my experience of growing Onyx Homes from start to finish. My name is Christian Stubbs. I own Onyx Homes, and I've been in the business for a little over 5 years at this point. And we have scaled our team to just cross over the 700 homes sold mark for a little over 600 and almost $650 million in total sales volume. So this is my story. If you want the closest possible look, the link down in the description below is going to have you the ability to join our free community where you can learn way more about how we do business. But anyway, let's get into the content today. So the path to get where you want to go is much easier once you actually know where you want to go, right? Let me say it again. The path to get there is much easier once you actually know where you want to go. And this is a lot in lines with vision, which I talk about a lot in previous episodes. But let's walk through how to find your minimum team size, because I would say almost every team leader that I talk to, especially those that are running small teams. Now, for reference, I say small is anything below 30 agents. Really more like 20 agents is very small. But when I talk with team leaders, I ask them, how many agents do you want to have, or what is your team size you want to have? And most of the time they have no idea, or they're just totally guessing. They say 10 or 15, and we ask why. And a lot of the times they're like, I don't know, I don't want to manage more than that many people, or I want a small SEAL team, or whatever the thing is. But it's also important to understand that when you're saying I want to start a team, or I want to grow my team, is you're saying I want to grow or start a business. And understanding that you don't, in business, you don't pull numbers out of thin air, or at least successful businesses aren't guessing their way through this. So let's go ahead and figure out how to find your ideal count, and then I'll talk through this in a little bit more detail. So first, let me share some benchmarks. Regardless of your market, regardless of your price point, regardless of your average commissions, if you don't have a big team already, these are the numbers to base off of. Now, if you already have a team of 40 plus agents, then use your numbers. But if you're below 20, even honestly 30 agents, use these numbers as a benchmark. And the reason that I say that is this is going to, if you have a small team and you use your numbers are going to be wildly inflated, meaning you're going to be way higher than what I'm about to say. And you're going to really badly want to use those numbers because you're amazing, and you are. However, at scale, not all of your agents are going to be rainmakers. And if you have a small team, generally it's built on the back of 2 or 3 really rock star agents and then a few average ones. And as you scale, that's not going to be the case. So regardless of price point, regardless of market, regardless of commissions, this is on average, an agent will bring you $80,000 in revenue, or GCI, per year. This runs through to all financial models, but $80,000 per year is the number. And I can tell you from my 5 years of experience talking to hundreds of other team leaders, this number is a very safe bet. And when you're making projections for your real estate team, you don't want to be lofty setting goals like this. You want to use a more conservative number. So let's stick with the $80,000 in GCI. Okay, so let's just say, regardless of your, let's say you're running a traditional team, because that's what most team leaders do, and that's what most team leaders should do, is run a traditional team model where most of the agents run, 50-50-ish splits, regardless of where the leads come from. So if you want to make $500,000 in profit from your business, and your goal is to run a 25% profit margin, well, now we can figure out a couple of different things. One, let's figure out how much revenue we need to do at 25% profit margin in order to get to $500,000 in profit. So if we take the $500,000 in profit, or whatever number you are, if you're following along, here's the formula. You take the amount of profit that you want and you divide that by your profit margin percentage. So in this example, we're going to do $500,000 divided by 25%, which is going to get you $2 million, which is $2 million in revenue, or GCI. Okay, so if you want your ideal team and you want to make $500,000 in profit, now you know that if you're running a 25% profit margin, you need to have a $2 million revenue business. Okay, so that's that so far. Now, let's figure out how many agents you're going to need in order to get to $2 million in revenue. Now, here's a pro tip that I cannot emphasize enough. I wish that I would have done this when I was growing my team. I would have been out of limbo 3 years earlier. I was in limbo for 3 years because I did not do this particular thing, which is why we're talking about this today. So anyway, we know we need to get to $2 million in revenue to get to the $500,000 in profit. And we also know that an agent is going to, on average, bring in $80,000 in revenue, or GCI. So we can take that $2 million, so whatever your revenue was, but in this example, $2 million, and you divide that by $80,000 per agent, and that tells us that we're going to need 25 agents in order to hit our goal of $2 million in revenue, 25% profit margins, $500,000 in profit. That means 25 agents. Okay, cool. Now, the best part of this exercise, this is the part that I really wish I would have done, is this takes your production completely out of the picture. So if you are already doing $500,000 in GCI, you should separate that from what your team needs to run at in order to become profitable and make you the type of money that you want it to make you. So taking your personal production out of this is incredibly important, because really they're kind of two different businesses. Now, obviously you have you share overhead and all that stuff, but you want your team to, I imagine at least, let me speak for me. I want my team to be profitable without my production. If I'm running a team that loses money just so that I can have a team that loses money, there's something wrong with that. And I say that with love, because I did that for 3 years. Or 2.5 years rather. For the first 2.5 years that I was selling, I was feeding almost all of my commissions back into the business, to where in 2020 I took of my $380,000 in GCI that I generated, I took 180 of that and put it back into the business, or 160 of that back into the business. So my business lost that much money. Now, mind you, I had a business partner at that time who also did the same amount of GCI, and so it was more than that, right? We fed the business $300,000 in the first year, literally lighting it on fire. Now, it was to build the business and all the stuff that all the stories that we tell, but really, that's what happened. The second year, this is even more painful. I personally did $780,000 in GCI, and I put 600 of that back into the business. So my team lost over $600,000 while I generated 780. Now that sounds like, Christian, why in the world would you do that? I told myself it was because I'm building for the future. I'm building like the long run. And the reality is my team was not profitable. And I was a shitty business owner at the time, pardon my French. And that was very true, is I did not have any idea how to run a profitable business. I didn't know anything about the different financial models. I didn't know any of that stuff. So that's why, in a very real way, that is exactly why I make this content. I'm kind of talking to my younger self, being like, snap out of it. You don't have to go through these long seasons of suck. You can just make the changes now to fix it. And this is a formula that I wish I would have done. And the reason for that is, in this example, we know we need 25 agents. Well, when I did this math, I knew that I needed to get to 32 agents for my team to start to make sense. So the amount of time it takes you, in this example, for 25 agents, for the time that it takes you to go from the 5 agents you have right now to 25, your team, your business does not make financial sense until you hit that minimum number. 25 will get you to that goal. And if you stop growing from there, what happens? Well, agents churn out, right? It's normal business. Every business has some sort of churn. Even Netflix. For $7 a month, you can watch every movie ever made in the history of the planet. People still cancel Netflix. So people are going to leave your team. I promise you. So you need to make sure you're still always at a minimum of 25 agents, because the reality is right when you drop down to 24, very likely that you're now going to be below your goals. And if you're anything like me, once you hit that $500,000 in profit mark, your goal next year is probably going to be higher, meaning you're probably going to need more agents. So that is absolutely the number one reason that I would do this exercise first, is I talk to team leaders all the time, and I ask, how many agents do you want? And they say 5. And I ask why. And well, they say like, I don't want to manage a big team. It's like, okay, well then your team's probably not going to be profitable. And that team leader is always in production, and that team leader always doesn't want to build, they're not building a real business. That team leader, in my opinion, is trying to take advantage of the spillover business that they get from their own personal production. Now, if you want to be a rainmaker business model, which is where you are in production, you hire, think of like the master with 1,000 hands. That's really that rainmaker business model, is where you're going to go out there and just be the king of the town and sell every single house. My opinion. If I wanted to be that agent, I would not be also growing a team. I would be maximizing my personal production and personal profit. And I would do that by hiring assistants and admin and those types of hires, rather than building out a sales team, because that is a whole nother business. And if you're in production and trying to build that, I can tell you from firsthand experience, really hard. I was working 100 hours a week and didn't have enough time for anything, to where my personal production struggling is the wrong word, because I was doing well, but I was missing so many opportunities, dropping the ball left and right on my personal production, which is why in 2022, I jumped completely out of sales to just run the team. And in 2020, halfway through 2022, I did this exercise, and we had always averaged about 16 to 20 agents on our team. And when I did the numbers, I realized, well, shoot, we need 32 agents on the team. No wonder we're not profitable, as we have literally half as many agents as we need to get anywhere near where we want to be. And from that moment forward, recruiting became a big emphasis. We focused on recruiting, and I've talked about recruiting a lot in the previous episodes. I've shared our entire automated recruiting funnel. You can go back to whatever episode number that was and watch that one, because that's exactly what we do. And we went from a business that made absolutely no financial sense whatsoever and was just sucking money and sucking mentally the life out of me. In 18 months later, we doubled the business and made it profitable. And then fast forward another 12 months, is we are exceeding our profit margins and growing much faster now than we ever did. And it's because the business model actually makes sense now. We have enough agent. We're past our ideal agent count for where we want it to be. And that grows over time because we have a business that we want to continue to grow. Our goal is a minimum 30-40% growth year over year, which we've done for the last 4 years in a row. We've more than doubled the company. And this year, from that, when I talk about 18 months ago, from when I kind of started making this content, we were doing about $2 million in revenue. I'm in March right now, so we're closing out Q1 this week, and we have closed over $1.2 million in GCI in one quarter, which is almost what we did 2 years ago in the whole year. And that's the growth that we want, right? And this is me documenting that kind of journey of growing the team like this. But I don't think you can start your team without having an idea, one, of your financial model, which is one of the most important things, period. And it's so important. I'll give myself a little plug here. It is so important that I unlock this for free in our free community, in our team building masterclass. So this portion's free, is the picking your financial model. And I think it's the thing that most often team leaders don't do, is they do not make an intentional decision on their financial model. I know we didn't at all. We just kind of copied and pasted what other people were doing, not knowing that the business we copied was not profitable at all. And that's a mistake most people make, because they'll look at somebody else, assume that they're doing really well, copy it, do it half as well, and then there you go, right? And there's constant problems from there. So no more guessing at your ideal team size. No more saying you want a small team for the sake of having a small team. And before I can hear you thinking, you can also, so I know that there's somebody that's listening to this that is thinking, I just have the most productive agents. My agents are going to do $200,000 per year in revenue on average, even as we scale. Sure. Yeah, definitely possible. But like from somebody's personal production standpoint, you could just, why don't you just double your price point of your whole team? And you could do that. You could double your commissions too. Or you could hire twice as many agents. Which of those is more likely? Which of those is easier? Which one of those sounds more sustainable? I'm going to stick with you need to hire more agents rather than trying to double your price point. Because if it was that easy, you probably would have done it. I say that with love because when I was not running a profitable team, I always said we're hardworking, like our agents are all super productive, all those things. And the reality was that's true. Agents were all productive at that when we had 6, all super productive. They all did really well, and the business didn't make money. So like, how much sense does that really make? And the reality was it was because they were getting way too many leads, opportunities that maybe not way too many, but yeah, they were getting way too many. So they were cherry picking. They were doing tons of deals. Business was losing money. They were super happy. And then guess what? They leave 5 years later, and it's like, the business didn't make sense that whole time. So you lost money the entire time while those agents were doing money, doing deals, making money, which is great. We want our agents to make all the money in the world. However, not at the sake of your business not being profitable. So if you need to make those changes, I highly recommend doing that right now. Let me go back and explain the formula one more time before we hop off today. This would be a short, easy episode because it's really just, it's an easy formula. Figure out how much profit you want to make. Step number 1. If you want to make $500,000 in profit and you're running a traditional team and you want a 25% profit margin, that means you need to take your ideal profit number divided by ideal profit margin. So 500,000 divided by 25% means you're going to need to do $2 million in revenue. Now, if you want to do $2 million in revenue and an agent is going to bring in on average $80,000 in revenue or GCI, that means you need 25 agents. So almost your only focus, at least from a recruiting standpoint, your focus should be to get to 25 agents as fast as possible, not sacrificing standards and all of that. You need standards. You need all the stuff we've talked about in previous episodes, but holding all those standards, you need to get to 25 agents as fast as possible. And the amount of time that you spend not having 25 agents is the amount of time you're spending with your business doesn't make sense. So that is the formula. Very simple, very straightforward. Find your goal for profit number, like how much profit. What is your profit model? Meaning like what is your profit margin? Realistic. Don't like shoot for the moon here. And how many agents do you need to get there? And then focus on that. Because if you have a 5, 6, 7 agent team, I promise you your constraint is you don't have enough agents to be able to grow the business. You don't have enough revenue to be able to grow the business because you don't have enough agents. So that is today's episode. Again, this is the Start to Finish podcast. This is me sharing my personal experiences growing Onyx Homes from start to finish. So that is another one down, and I will see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.